And when China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi met the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in Washington, D.C., things looked as diplomatic as they should. There were handshakes, smiles and courtesies extended, but before they walked out of the door together, they also issued statements on the Korea conundrum and how their respective countries wanted to deal with Pyongyang. Statements which hold little value now, given that the American president has called off the summit with Kim Jong-un. But what the statements betrayed was the fact that America and China weren't on the same page. Neither side wanted to cede an inch on the narrative on North Korea. It is wary of China's historic relationship with the North and the influence it may come to bear on the Trump-Kim equation. All of it became clear yesterday. It started with the U.S. president speculating on the content of Kim's meeting with the Chinese president in Dalian earlier this month. And of course, a little admiration tinged with sarcasm for Xi Jinping. This was followed by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo informing Congress that a sonic attack on a U.S. government employee had been reported from China's Guangzhou. There was a sense of deja vu. We saw something similar last year. In Cuba, America accused it of carrying a sonic attack on its diplomats in Havana. No evidence of these claims was made public. What followed was the U.S. leaving only a skeletal outfit of embassy staffers behind, pulling the rest out of Cuba. But back to China and another American U-turn. Yesterday, America pulled back its invitation to China for the Pacific Rim naval drills, explaining the decision. Pentagon spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Chris Logan said, and I quote, "China's continued militarization of disputed features in the South China Sea only served to raise tensions and destabilization of the region. We have disinvited the PLA Navy from the 2018 Rim of the Pacific Rim Pack exercise. China's behavior is inconsistent with the principles and purposes of the Rim Pack exercise." 3 bombs directed at China within 24 hours. The posturing is significant given the pace of developments in the region of late. Not only has Kim reached out to China twice in the last few months, he's also met with South Korea's president to pledge peace, a historic event in itself. And now, with Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov heading to North at the end of the month for talks, the U.S. may find its position of leverage at a disadvantage. The reassertion is therefore strategic, but its impact may still be a few weeks away on June 12th, the day that history could be made. And there are about 2,000 U.S. government employees posted in China. Their activities are closely watched by the Chinese authorities, which is standard. Even though nobody will ever admit it, what's less common and less obvious is the harassment and intimidation that diplomats face. But it happens not just in China, but the world over. Our next report looks at a few recent cases. Take a look.
This is the American embassy in Havana. In 2016, it was at the center of a major diplomatic controversy. The row was due to this mysterious sound that had made several American diplomats sick. The Cubans said they had no idea about what happened to those American diplomats. But U.S. lawmakers accused Cuba of targeting at least 24 American diplomats using a sophisticated device. The diplomats complained of headaches, dizziness, eyesight, hearing, sleep and concentration problems. Though nothing was proved, the fallout was rapid. Washington asked several of its diplomats to return home. The Trump administration expelled at least 17 Cuban diplomats to send a message.
I do believe Cuba is responsible. I do believe that. And it's a very unusual attack, as you know, but I do believe Cuba is responsible, yes.
The jury is still out on what really happened to the American diplomats in Cuba. But beyond Cuba, U.S. envoys have found Russia to be a challenging assignment. In 2016, the US State Department had raised concerns over the harassment of its diplomats in Russia. This was after 2 American diplomats were allegedly drugged during a United Nations anti-corruption conference in November 2015. Washington had even claimed that its diplomats in Russia were under surveillance. The diplomats were stopped several times by the traffic police. American officials in Moscow had even complained about mysterious break-ins. Diplomats said that they returned home to find their furniture rearranged and televisions and lights switched on. Indian diplomats have also faced harassment in foreign lands. Earlier this year, Indian diplomats lodged repeated complaints of harassment in Pakistan. In March, the Indian embassy in Islamabad had sent a note verbal to Pakistan Foreign Office after its diplomats were followed and intimidated by unknown people. India had also complained that its High Commission's website was being intermittently blocked in the country. Diplomats in Pakistan have also made similar complaints in India. Bureau Report, WION.